One.
Hello and welcome to our watch along of Free Enterprise. I am so excited for this. We are here have a very special guest, but before we get to him, Chris Doman, how are you going, mate?
I am doing very well because this is a remarkable opportunity to actually sit down and watch a movie and talk about that movie with the director. I I never dreamed this would happen, but here we are.
And Matt Kearns, how are you going, mate?
I'm doing really well. I watched this movie recently, and God, I can't wait to talk about a movie that I semi relate to an awful lot.
Uh-oh.
And Evan, how are you going, mate?
I am going really well. After last night, I just want to continue to hear more and more stories about more things that we did. The whole filmmaking process from start to finish is just so involving and it's so intriguing. And like for someone that's my age and whatnot, you're always trying to learn more. Learning is power. Knowledge is power. So I'm always curious and I'm very interested for tonight, to say the least.
Thank you, G.I. Joe.
And Chris Clark, thank you for joining us. How are you going, mate?
Thank you, Jacob. This movie means a lot to me. Growing up, I actually grew up with this movie. I actually grew up with the original cut of this movie. Yeah, and actually, my dad bought this DVD. I didn't get to watch the DVD before after he passed away, but this movie, like I on a recent movie fandom show, I told everybody how King Kong inspired me to make film. This movie inspired me to become a film editor, and I've loved this movie for years. This movie brought me to Collider. This brought me to Robert Meyer Burnett, which brought me to the Schmodown. So this movie, I have this movie to thank for my fandom of the Schmodown. It's a domino effect. So thank you, Robert.
I'm going to tell Harloff you said that. I'm going to tell Harloff.
Oh goodness! But anyway, this movie is fantastic, and I just can't wait to watch this and experience this with you guys. This is great.
Thank you, Chris. And we have someone who had a little bit of involvement in this movie. Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett, how are you going?
I'm going great. I want to thank you for inviting me, to do this. It's funny when you make a movie, you really don't look at it ever again. I mean, unless you're watching it with people that want to see it. It's not like you take your own movies and sit down and are like, "Hey, I'm pretty awesome. I made this movie. Let me watch it." Because it doesn't happen that way. So I haven't seen this movie in a very long time. So it's going to be interesting to watch it with you guys tonight.
All right.
So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're all set up. Let's just get the show on the road. Everyone, we're starting at 0000. We are watching the extended edition of Free Enterprise.
It should be 2 hours long.
2 hours long. Yeah, I've got 2 hours and 39 seconds. So let's hit play in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play.
All right. Well, you're about to hear the vocal stylings of Ian Astbury from the long version of She Sells Sanctuary from the Cults album Love. We put this in the new edition because we figured George Lucas had just messed up these Star Wars movies with the special editions, that why shouldn't we mess up our movie and make it sort of funny? It was just an extra added joke. So that's why we had the Star Wars crawl at the beginning.
It works. It works really well.
This part had me dying on the inside. It was
So, like, are there all the prequels to where it's like Rob as like an angsty teenager or something who doesn't like sand?
Well, it's funny, when we made this movie, The Phantom Menace hadn't come out yet. And so we were still all gung-ho about Star Wars, and there was the idea that anybody would make a Star Wars movie that was less than awesome was something we didn't believe it. Now, this logo, Mindfire Entertainment, I'd always had this name in the back of my mind, that's what I wanted a film company to be named. Mindfire Entertainment was the home of combustible imagination.
Oh, cool.
And my friend, and then the near present was something that that I always liked. The idea that it's not quite out the real world; it's a different world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is Eric McCormick, who obviously played Mark Altman, and he was the first person we cast in the movie. Mm-hmm. And after he did this, he went on and did the Will and Grace pilot and became famous for that. Mm-hmm. But he's an incredible actor.
This scene wasn't supposed to be at the beginning, was it?
No. Oh no. I recut the whole. The movie was so episodic that I restructured a lot of it. The opening was very different. It was going to open with the 2 scenes with the kids, but they didn't work as well. And this sort of dropped you into the whole idea of who these characters were. And we played a lot with the editorial of the movie, and I thought it worked. It worked better here because it was ridiculous. And
it seems natural. Yeah.
Carl Bressler here, he's playing a character named Mort Berg. Every movie he's ever in, he was in The Usual Suspects. He got killed in The Usual Suspects. He plays a character named Berg. So he asked us, could we change his name to Mort Berg? And we said, sure, why not?
In the original cut, this is the only scene he's in, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't know. Yeah, when we get, I don't know why that scene was cut. Yeah,
it was just too long. I mean, I could recut this whole movie and make it so much better right now. I look at it. So
there's a fade out that happens later on that I'm like, I don't know if that works, but
we're already getting criticized.
I'm curious with this one. Is there things that you would, because you've now changed as a filmmaker, that you would change instead?
Oh yeah,
is that why you would have?
There's not one frame in this movie I wouldn't change. I mean, literally, I look at it and to me, it's amateur hour. I've learned so much. But again, when you're making a low budget independent movie, we were shooting in 2 locations a day. I mean, which was insane. It was crazy to make this movie. And the fact that we got as much of it as we got was amazing.
How did you get your locations?
Oh, it took forever. And it was during the middle of El Nino, so half the locations we picked, the whole end of the movie was supposed to be a beach party shot at Point Doom where the end of Planet of the Apes took place. It was going to be outside on the beach. I had built a model where all the setups were going to be, and everything was flooded, and the state of California closed the beaches. So during the middle of production, we had to figure out something else and make it up as we went along, like Indiana Jones and Raiders.
Nice. All right, guys, we are just getting at the 4-minute and 10-second point now. And so for anyone who's just joined us, we are at 4 minutes and 15, 16, 17, 18.
I do gotta say, when I first saw just like the opening text at the beginning, I was at the opening credits. For some reason, I this is the weirdest connection, but like for me, I was like, whoa, this is really trippy. Like what's the creative decisions behind this? Because I thought it was just really interesting.
You mean this?
Yeah.
The credits. This is actually a reference to a Star Trek episode called "Is There in Truth No Beauty," where there's a guy named Larry Marvick who's in love with Diana Muldaur's character, and he uses his knowledge and blasts the Enterprise into this sort of weird realm, and that's kind of what we're recreating here. So everything is a Star Trek reference.
So I'm just wondering, Free Enterprise, how would you guys? Because as someone who's made films myself, it's always the title I've always had the most difficulty with after I finish writing. How'd you guys come up with Free Enterprise?
Well, it's funny because the movie was originally called Trekkers. And Trekkers was the erudite word for Trekkies, and it was based when we made it. The inspiration was Doug Liman's movie Swingers, so the movie was called Trekkers, and then Paramount was coming out with their documentary Trekkies.
Great documentary.
And we they contested our title. And we probably could have contested it as well and gone back to them, but we didn't want to piss Paramount off because we had so many Star Trek references in the movie that we just changed the title, and it was hard to come up with a title. And one day, Mark Altman, who my co-writer and producer, he came up with the idea of Free Enterprise. And it was sort of this non sequitur but it stuck. I liked it. And I'm like, let's call it that. Why not? Yeah. So that's how it ended up getting called Free Enterprise. It's interesting. This is supposed to be Star Trek: The Motion Picture. There's a poster right here in the background you can see between the two of them. Paramount would not let us use movie posters for Star Trek: The Motion Picture, so that's actually a poster for Buck Rogers in the 25th century.
I noticed
That's great.
And then there's Xanadu in Manhattan. All of the movie posters that you see in the movie, we had to get cleared. Everything.
Do you know if this flashback has any truth with Mark? If this really?
Oh yeah, it's absolutely based on something that happened for real.
Okay.
He had to run and go get his mom. You know, he grew up in Brooklyn. And this is absolutely, there's a longer version of this scene where he drags his mother. You see him running down the street. Here's, of course, Shatner's first appearance in the movie, which I love. And we shot this on Wilshire Boulevard, which is an incredibly difficult street to shoot on. It's incredibly busy. And why we were shooting on this street is beyond me, because we're like, no, everything has to be in practical locations. It was so silly. I mean, but we didn't know any better. We were young and stupid.
So you had to do a lot of ADR?
There's hardly any ADR at all in this movie, which is amazing.
Cool.
And that's a testament to our sound guy, our production sound guy, James Coburn IV, who was actually the great actor James Coburn's son.
That's awesome.
And he was our sound guy. He even shot at the beach, and we didn't have to ADR anything. It was great. I hate ADR.
I do as well.
It destroys the performance and it makes it sound dull.
Yeah, you can never get ADR right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we've got the young James Whale, the actor there was playing the young James Whale in the movie Gods and Monsters. He's a great kid. And,
cool.
Yeah, young Jake Sisko in the beginning of the pilot for Deep Space Nine. And this is Marilyn Kentz, who was one of the mommies. She was pretty popular 20 years ago. She had like a TV show, and Mark Altman said, I have to have Marilyn Kentz play my mom. And his mother had approval over her casting, which was pretty funny.
Wow, amazing.
I'm not gonna lie, I love this dialogue of when you have the kid who is sort of the nerdy kid has to explain to his mom the difference between what she just sort of says something is and what it actually is. That's like how much fun was it to write dialogue like this for the film?
Oh, it was. I mean, the way it worked is that Mark he did a first draft of the script, and then he would throw it back to me, and I would rewrite it, and then throw it back to him, and he would rewrite it, and then we sat in a room together to get the script down. We would act out scenes, and if we could crack ourselves up, then we'd keep the lines, we'd keep the dialogue. And this was based on something that happened the day that Star Trek: The Motion Picture opened. I wore a Starfleet uniform to junior high school, and a kid named Mike Elfendahl, who was in the 9th grade, took me to the girls' bathroom and beat the shit out of me.
Oh my God.
And I did not have a vision of William Shatner, but Mark Altman actually wrote this scene, and this was the first scene written for the film. And he sent it to me when I was working on I was editing all the videos for the Star Trek experience in Las Vegas. And he sent this to me one night. I read it, and I'm like, okay, we've got to make this movie.
Yeah.
This is the moment when I knew I was going to love this movie, was this exchange between young Robert and Bill.
Oh, he's one of the last scenes shot with Bill, and he's just fantastic.
Wow.
And this is something I not beat up, but I'm so used to, wearing a Star Wars or Star Trek shirt and getting made fun of, and it's like, come on, and getting called gay because you're wearing a shirt, like, kids are stupid.
Yeah, I got that a lot, but I wasn't really bullied, but I did get a lot of shit because I had a big mouth when I was in the 7th grade, and the older kids used to pick on me, but because I would fight back, so I got in trouble a lot. Yeah. Like one day, a 9th grader named Jeff Rice, whose father was my orthodontist, dumped a plate load of spaghetti on me, and then I would just scoop the spaghetti up and then run or walk over to where he was in the cafeteria and throw it right back at him. Of course, then I knew I was going to get it beat up after school, but I was like, that was okay.
This is the best line in the movie coming up right here.
Yeah, Shatner's delivery was great too.
Oh man.
And I know this is probably intentional, but this whole time I was just thinking of the episode Arena. The whole time, just, even the fighting style of it is just
That's
classic
all
TOS.
intentional. It's all intentional.
Like
This
just
part
that.
just makes me laugh.
That was a.
Guys, we are
Get
30
up and
seconds from 12 minutes. We are 30 seconds from 12 minutes, everyone.
It's funny because we couldn't use the Star Trek insignia on his shirt, the Delta Shield. So this, as quickly as I could get his shirt torn,
15 seconds.
It was great. Now I'll tell you a funny story. He mentions
10,
in this speech. He mentions
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 12 minutes, everyone.
Beautiful.
Sorry about that, Robert.
Thank you, Evan. Appreciate it.
This girl's name, Laura Hofferman. Laura Hofferman is a real person, and she was a girl who was a grade ahead of me in junior high and high school, and I was obsessed with her. I thought she was the most beautiful creature I'd ever seen. And when I made the movie, I just put her name in it, not thinking that I would actually have to go contact her and ask her if I could really use her name because she's a real person. So I contacted her through some friends, and she signed. And this is, of course, I made this movie 15 years after I left high school, and yet I still was thinking about her. And how weird and creepy is that? But so she signed off on it, and to this day, I have never spoken to her in almost 19 years. I've never spoken to her about if she's ever seen the movie, what she thought of the movie, how she felt about me putting her name in the movie. I've never spoken to her about it. I've always been curious as to what she thought. I hope she likes it.
Was this your actual apartment you shot in?
No, this is actually Bruce Willis's brother David's house.
Whoa.
David was a co-producer on movies like The Whole Nine and Whole 10 Yards, and he graciously let us use his house, and we used almost all of it. His backyard is the French bistro that Mark takes the Munchkin to. This is a room in his house. The kitchen is a room that we shot. We shot all over his house. He had no idea that we were going to be there for like 3 days.
You probably saved so much money.
Oh, we saved so much money. And there were so many other locations in this film that anytime we could save money, as with all independent productions, it's a good thing.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and we, all the action figures we had donated, like McFarlane Toys gave us a lot of figures. We had to have those Kiss action figures.
Oh, wow.
There's a joke made about them later.
Is this your actual ornament?
No. My actual ornament was actually taken away by a girl named Trisha Bowman, the former Miss New Jersey, 1988-89. In real life, her name was Trisha Bowman. And she took the ornament that she gave to me. Her mother gave it to me, actually. And so for the movie, we went out and bought another one of these. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have the ornament again. And then at the end of the movie, Mark Altman and Dan Bates, the other two producers, said, you should give the guy who paid for it, Mark Otwald, you should give him the ornament as a gesture of goodwill. And I was like, oh, okay. So it wasn't until my current girlfriend, Elizabeth, we lived together, Elizabeth gave me an ornament back. She gave me a Hallmark Star Trek Christmas ornament again. So I didn't have one for almost 20 years until she gave one to me. So I have one again. Thank God.
Something tells me that Tomorrow Never Dies poster's product placement.
Well, it's funny that you say that. I wanted a Goldfinger poster there, but we had other MGM posters like Life Force that you can't really see, but MGM requested we put Tomorrow Never Dies in there. Because it was the James Bond movie that had come out the year before we shot the movie.
Yeah.
So it had just come out on video. So indeed, it was product placement for MGM.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I'm sure most people watching this movie see that poster and they go, I want to buy that movie.
Right. I mean, hey, it's been a long time since I saw that James Bond movie.
Is this Mexican?
And maybe now that it's an Inner Geekdom category, you might have to go check it out just to study up.
I know, right? Oh, and this girl, Trisha Cruz, I loved her. She's on Facebook. She's a stand-up comic. She's on Playboy Radio, or she was on Playboy Radio. She was very cute in real life and very funny.
I love that hat.
Yeah.
So ridiculous.
is that Mexican restaurant still there?
Chevy's. I think it is. I think we shot that on Ventura Boulevard. It's in, I think it's in Encino.
Ah, cool.
A lot of the places we shot at are not there. We used to joke that if we put your place of employment or restaurant in free enterprise, you're going to go out of business soon, because so many of the restaurants did go out of business.
Like Cartoonsville.
Yeah, they went out of business. And all that was really cool.
You used a lot of practical lighting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
I think you can't get on a low budget. You can't get the look you get. I mean, this looks everything I wanted to have a hyper real, colorful look. So we shot in places that already had lots of neon. And whenever you shoot, one of the things that is death for a low budget movie is if you shoot up against a wall. So I always wanted to shoot them like there should be more extras in the background, but you always try and shoot with as much depth and room as you can, so you get that out of focus background texture. Otherwise, low budget movies look very low budget.
Yeah, and it kind of gives it like a reminiscent of like a Star Trek old episode or something like.
Yes,
a sitcom.
I mean that's definitely what I want it to look like. I mean, lots of color.
Yeah.
So there's a question in the chat that I want to hit real quick. Malcolm Lay asks, Robert, did you change any event of your story for the movie, or is it exactly the way it happened? Also, your inspiration for doing the TV and film, of course, I am on. Yeah.
Well, all of it, I hate to say it, most of the incidents in the movie are based on things that happened, but we use those incidents as a jumping off point. And we sort of embellished them or made them work in the context of the film itself. But yeah, living in Los Angeles, I moved here when I was 2 weeks after my 21st birthday, and living in LA in your early 20s, going to school and working at movie studios and working on low budget movies, it was a rollicking time, to say the least. And I would love to make another movie that really captured. You just never knew what the weekends, what any day in Los Angeles held in store for you in your early 20s. I could tell stories that nobody would ever believe of stuff that would happen to you. So we had an enormous amount to draw from. I certainly did. So, yeah.
This book. Wondering, did you have at any point when you were writing this script, did you ever think that you would play yourself in the film?
Yeah, that was
like Kevin Smith, where you're like, I can never play myself because in Clerks, Dante is him. Did you ever think you would be playing yourself?
We were absolutely going to play ourselves at first, but then it was my idea. I said, look, we'll play ourselves as a last resort. Let's cast the movie. And the first person we saw was Eric McCormick, and we're like, well, that went out the window. As soon as we saw Eric, we're like, oh, there's no way we could do that. So we not be as good. I mean, one of my favorite things in the world is working with great actors. They bring an ineffable quality that you cannot. I cannot praise actors enough. By the way, this is
how, just how.
Navarro.
Yeah, I don't recommend going down on a girl while you're driving. It doesn't work.
That's a great scene. That's a great scene.
Kids, take a lesson from this movie.
Ladies,
make love with a woman in a bed or on a couch.
What Rayford
Don't do it in
here.
a moving vehicle.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. I just don't think you should be driving when you're trying to go down on a girl.
So this Twilight Zone book that Rob is holding, that's definitely a reference to William Shatner's famous episode. Or
yeah, well, it was that.
Too into it.
No. It definitely was, and also everything I loved, I wanted to work into this movie, like the Twilight Zone. I love the Twilight Zone, and this magazine I used to write for Sci-Fi Universe magazine. It was published by Larry Flint. So we always had porno mags around the office, and Chic was one of my favorite of those porno mags that he would publish because the girls look relatively real, as opposed to having fake breasts. We hate fake breasts because they're fake. They're like bad matte paintings, or the visual effects in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which are all bad. So, yeah.
Out of curiosity, Robert, this bookstore wasn't the original location, was it?
No, we were going to shoot a Crown Books that had these really long bookshelves. And I was going to steady cam and stuff. But it flooded. So at the last minute, I had to pick another bookshelf or a bookstore. And I came up with this in the middle of shooting. And from the time I thought of this idea to the time we were shooting, it was just the afternoon.
Yeah. Mein Kampf.
Yeah.
Oh,
What were we saying, Chris?
No, sorry, I'm busy laughing because again, dialogue.
So good.
My one thing that I just cannot do in my writing. I can tell you I could probably tell you a great freaking story, but if you ask me to tell you what the characters are saying, I'll be like, they're saying hi dude or something like that.
You know the secret to writing great dialogue is specificity. Never just say just use like, how are you? Oh, I'm okay. Never say I'm okay. Make the character say something like something that's very specific. Never use generic words. And if you can do that, specificity will always help you write better dialogue.
So
the sun.
I am legit writing this down.
Like if the sun is high in the sky, you should never have a character say, "Oh, it's sunny outside." Yeah. The character should say something like, "I don't know, it's something that would be the same thing, but that's much more descriptive and more interesting."
Matt,
that's the key to writing better dialogue is specificity.
Definitely going to take that advice. So how, because I assume, you write this and you have William Shatner in it. How do you go about getting him to be in your movie? Because if you don't get him, then the movie kind of falls apart.
This is a good story.
We were laboring under the impression that he would the original version of the film was very different than this. The original version was he was an imaginary character the whole time. And we took our inspiration from the Woody Allen movie Played Against Sam. And Shatner showed up as this apparition, this martini swilling hepcat who was the epitome of cool. And he was would comment on these characters' lives. And when we eventually got the movie to Shatner, we figured he'd do it because we portray him as the coolest guy in the universe. And it was Shatner who said, he turned us down. And he said, I can't be in this movie. I mean, you've written me as God. He's like, I'm a fucked up guy. I got problems. I mean, if I were to make this movie, I'd be laughed out of Hollywood. And back then, the Shatner-sance, the renaissance of Shatner had not happened yet. He hadn't gotten Emmy Awards for playing Denny Crane, and his career was he had Rescue 911, and Shatner was kind of, he was kind of a punchline of a lot of jokes. And it was he who suggested, look, if you were to rewrite your script and make the character of Bill Shatner a real person that has real problems, then maybe I'll reread your script and I'll reconsider it. And we're like, well, what kind of I was so enamored of Captain Kirk and William Shatner. I'm like, well, what kind of problems do you have? I mean, you are God. You are the coolest guy in the universe. And he's like, no, I'm not. I've got money problems. I've got ex-wives. I've got daughters. I mean, I got women. That's a problem I have. Women. So go rewrite that. And he sort of sent us off on the quest to rewrite the movie. And when we turned him into a real person, it sort of came to life, and it had a pathos and sort of something that was more real and genuine that we hadn't considered, and it became a much better movie because of it.
As a TJ Hooker fan, I love the reference to he knows Heather Locklear, because I'm like, oh, I know that, I get that.
Yeah. I mean, it was all that stuff was so much fun to come up with, and it was, just this anything we could think of, we could throw in it if it made us laugh. Because my coterie of friends, we'd walk around and talk in. I don't know if you remember, but they came out with this. Well, they talked about Ebonics. Like Ebonics was like this ethnic language that was indecipherable to white society or whatever. And so we came up with Ebionics. We spoke in Ebionics because bionic, like the Bionic Man. So because we always peppered our dialogue, our conversations with these arcane movie references just in our daily lives. So we figured, why not put that in the movie? Because that specificity made it funny and interesting. Even if you don't know what the reference directly refers to, it's still amusing because everyone knows a person who's obsessed with sports or obsessed with something.
This pool scene was that I think that was Mark's dad that cameoed.
Yeah, you barely see Mark's dad. My father and Mark's father were both in this scene. My dad's Dick the bartender, and then Mark's dad. That's another thing. I want to find a way to maybe put Mark's father. There's just a cut of him that I want to see if I can put back into the movie. I mean, I'd recut this whole film. I'd actually edit the film just a little brisker and add a little bit more cutaways and just tighten it up, kind of the way Oliver Stone did a third version of Alexander. I want to do a third version of Free Enterprise.
Yeah. This is coming up as the Toys R Us scene.
Yeah.
That's Phil Lamar. What was it like working with him? He's
Phil
the voice
Lamar,
of
he's amazing. Phil Lamar, first of all, is one of the nicest, most talented guys in the world. He was on Mad TV. He did the voice of Green Lantern for a while. I mean, he's amazing and such a nice guy. So nice. And Jonathan Slavin, actually all four of these guys. Rafer Weigel is now a television. He's a newscaster. Rafer is great. He's in St. Louis. And Eric McCormack, he's got that cool time travel show on Netflix, Travelers, and now he's coming back as Will and Grace. And Slavin's a working actor. By the way, when we shot this movie, it rained all the time. So as much rain as I could put in the film, I would, because it's so different from what Los Angeles is actually like. It never rains here.
Now, this Toys R Us sequence, how did you go about doing this, and how much of a bitch was it?
Oh, it was a pain in the ass because we only had 3 hours to shoot in there, and it was really rough. And then they turned on the music at 9 o'clock. The manager of the store was a real asshole, and I'm like, come on, dude. And this is Dan Bates' son, Spencer, who plays the kid. And this was after Shadows of the Empire had come out. We were always bagging on Shadows of the Empire, which was before Star Wars was big again. They had a novel that came out after the Thrawn trilogy that Timothy Zahn wrote. And they tried to base all these merchandise things, like they had the Shadows of the Empire video game that was actually pretty good. So that's where all this stuff came from.
Wasn't there supposed to be like a lightsaber battle?
Yeah, there was. There was a lightsaber battle that we were filming. It just didn't work because, again, having 3 hours to load in and load out and shoot these scenes was just really disappointing. I have that footage, and I wonder if I could make it work.
Yeah. How hard was it to clear all these toys?
Oh, everything had to be cleared. Everything that you see, DC and Marvel, all of it had to be cleared. Oh, it was a nightmare. A nightmare. But DC and Marvel were good. McFarlane Toys was really cool. A lot of the comic companies that we approached were really cool. Gene Simmons of Kiss had to approve the use of Kiss action figures, and he was great. Dave Parker, who plays himself in the movie, has Gene Simmons painted on the back of his jacket. Again, this was the only day I got really mad on set. Mark Altman and Dan Bates left. It was pouring down rain. The whole crew was out in the rain. I was out in the rain shooting this scene, and we got back to the office, and I'm like, you guys are pussies. You don't leave your crew in the middle of a downpour. And I was very angry about that. But I thought this scene was funny.
That food must have been great.
Oh, yeah, it was funny. And we bring up the Munchkin here. Mark Altman had this girlfriend. I won't use her real name, but she's a pretty famous author now. But I've always found her to be monumentally annoying in real life, so I called her the Munchkin. So I put her in the script as the Munchkin. But when she found out it was based on her, she was cool about it.
That's lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not often you find someone who your parodying actually is 100% cool. That's a rare feat.
No, especially when you see her actually, the girl who plays Amanda Ingber, who plays the Munchkin, is now a famous aerobics instructor to the stars. And I thought she was so funny as the Munchkin. I thought for sure the real Munchkin would get pissed, but she didn't. And this is Patrick Van Horn from Swingers, who is playing my friend Sean Fanning, who passed away back in 2000. The real Sean passed, not Patrick Van Horn, the actor, but the character he's playing, Sean Fanning, my best friend, passed away in 2011.
Oh,
so it's good to see him. Well, at least his memory is being upheld here in the movie. And that beer he's drinking is Widmer Hefeweizen from a Oregon brewery I became obsessed with. So I called them up and I said, "Hey man, can I just put your beer in the movie?" And they're like, they had no experience with that. And I said, "You guys have to sign off." And I had to send them paperwork, and they actually sent me like 12 cases of beer, which I thought was great. But I have it totally prominently in the movie, and I'm very. This was total product placement, but at my own behest because I love Widmer Hefeweizen.
Wait, so Robert, are you a craft beer guy?
Oh, I love craft beer.
My dad runs a brewery. Hit me up.
Well, send me a case. Send me anything. I love everything. IPAs. You know what? I went to I was at the Fort Collins Comic Con last summer with Richard Hatch a year ago in August, and I got hooked on sours. I had never drank sour beer before, and I loved sour beer. It's hard to. No one in LA serves it. I didn't even know what sour beer was, but I love craft beer and I love sours.
Where was the Garden of Eden sequences filmed?
The Garden of Eden was the name of a club, and it was a real club. And we never really went there. It didn't look like this either. It was usually very, very dark, but I told Chuck Barbie, our DP, that I wanted this to look like Captain Pike's club that he dreamed about owning in the Star Trek episode, The Menagerie, which was the recut version of The Cage. Yep. So this was Pike's place. Nice place you got here, Mr. Pike. So it was lit with lots of gels, and it's supposed to be redolent of a classic Star Trek episode.
Yeah, that's what I got from the lighting.
Yeah, and it's cool because
there too, which makes sense.
Yeah, and you've got like a real fire. And by the way, nobody smokes in movies anymore, but I wanted Sean to smoke because it was more atmosphere. Now you can't even smoke anywhere in LA.
Hey guys, we're about to hit 34 minutes and 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 34 minutes.
Where did Moaning Girl come from?
That was a thing that was happening to Mark Altman. Somebody was Somebody was calling him and faking an orgasm, or we think it was faking an orgasm into his phone answering machine, and he never found out who it was.
Oh God!
So I was like, we got to put that in, even though it never pays off. And that girl that's standing with Layla, the girl in the frame. That was Krista Baker, my housemate for 5 years. Now this is the real Munchkin. This is at David Willis's house in the backyard. We just turned it into an outdoor French bistro. It had a view of LA, and I mean, you would never know this is someone's back porch, but it is.
That's really well. Like that's really good set design.
Yeah, we just hung up lights in the trees, and I wish I had shot more masters. Of this, but we just didn't have the time.
What kind of lenses did you use?
Well, this film is all shot with prime lenses. I'm a big fan of prime lenses. They have fixed focal lengths, which means they're not zoom lenses. So your focal lengths are you usually get I think we had 5 different prime lenses, and I love primes. I love you can kind of tell prime lenses by looking at movies like Die Hard, things that Jan de Bont shot, or Dean Cundy's photography for John Carpenter in his early movies before he switched over to Gary Kibbe for things like Prince of Darkness and They Live. But I love how prime lenses look. But you have to make distinct choices because you can't adjust like you can with a zoom lens. But it provides a very distinct look that I really, really like.
Yeah.
Like this shot. That's a great look. I really like that shot. Now, this is Lori Lively. This is Robin Lively and Blake Lively's older sister. Blake Lively, who's married to Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, I see. Okay, no, I see it in the face. That's awesome.
Oh, that Jaws poster though.
Yeah, although that's not an original. It's not an original one sheet. But again, we had to clear it. Yeah. And that's actually a Space 1999 Eagle transporter hanging from the ceiling.
But it just has to. It has to look like the Falcon, obviously. But
yeah, and now this was based on a girl named Suzanne Bennett that I dated for a long time. And then you'll see oranges on the table, which is a reference to The Godfather, because every time something bad happens in The Godfather, you see oranges.
Yeah.
So there's always some kind of reference going on. And George Christie's Great Life column doesn't exist anymore. So these were anachronistic references. And gerrymandering, everybody knows that word now because the GOP in the United States has used it so many times in their favor over the last 15 years. Now see how there's an orange on the table? That was a Godfather reference. Again, I really like the lighting in this scene with the streaming in the window, and I really think Chuck Barbie did a fantastic job. My DP actually made a documentary on the making of this movie Silent Running that you can see on the Blu-ray. This is a true story, by the way. This girl I dated, she wouldn't let me go out with her friends because she didn't think I was erudite enough and could speak on enough topics.
The deleted scene coming up. There was a deleted scene with his landlord that you didn't put in.
Yeah.
Who was that guy?
All right, Evan, you might want to look away. There might be boobs here.
Oh yes, there's some boobage. Nice real good boobs. Hal Pittman is based on my landlord Hal Solars, and the actor that played him was in a movie that I had edited, and he's been in a couple of things, and I really I thought he was funny, but you know what? It was too over the top. It was just too. I thought borderline caricature, so I cut the scene out.
Yeah, I think he also got cut out of the finale. I think there was something.
Yeah, there was scenes in the finale, but he's in one scene now, and he has the door slammed on him, and I think it's funny. But again, I would go back and revisit that stuff and maybe make it work. All of these scenes go on way too long.
Yeah.
So. And that's a poster for Romeo is Bleeding in the background. Again, another favorite movie of mine at the time we made the film. I love Romeo is Bleeding. It's so good. Gary Oldman's so good in it. Lena Olin. If you want to watch a great seedy B cop thriller that is just one of the great pulp movies of the late 90s, watch Romeo is Bleeding.
It's crazy you have to clear all of that.
Oh, all of it had to be cleared.
Yeah.
We had that snowboard sent to us. Yeah, it all had to be cleared.
Man. Yeah, say it. That was a Meatloaf reference there.
Yep.
Yes.
Two out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah. There. By the way, we did hide things like there's Darth Vader's TIE fighter hanging in the background. We couldn't get any official Star Wars stuff because we couldn't guarantee a PG rating. So wherever I could sneak Star Wars stuff in, I would.
You had to guarantee a PG rating for that?
Yeah. They wouldn't let us put stuff in. I mean, if you want to show things, you can talk about Star Wars like Kevin Smith did in Clerks when they're talking about the Death Star, the workers on the Death Star.
You can't show anything.
You can't show anything. That's copywritten.
I mean, you guys didn't talk about it. One of my favorite scenes is later on at the beach when you reference it.
Yeah, you can talk about anything you want, and you can show the name of something like Star Trek, but you can't use their logos or iconography.
This scene wasn't in the original cut.
No, this was a deleted scene, and it sets up a joke that comes back later that deals with the Munchkin and deals with Diane Eisenberg, who was Mark's unrequited love in college. And it always bothered me that we cut this out because I love the fact that we got outside in this scene. But again, these long walking and talking scenes are not always the best for pacing. But I liked it. And now with shaky cam, I just thought it was fun. I like this scene. So I put it back in.
Yeah. It sets up that joke, though, which made it awkward in the original cut.
Yeah, the joke was like, no one got it.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I can imagine in 1999, people got a little sick of scenes of people just walking and talking. Phantom Menace. Oh, sorry, what?
Yeah, no, it's true, but we were definitely going to try and fit in the genre of Kevin Smith and Swingers and the movies that had come before us. But these scenes might be too long. Although again, I do like this scene, and I like Slavin and McCormick playing off of each other like this.
And it's the only scene where it's not raining.
Right, it's true. That was all the basketball scenes, right? They
Yep. Oh yeah, there was a basketball scene that I don't think you cut that from the.
No, it was in the
You're right.
And Mark would always, in real life, the Mark character played basketball, which I always thought was hilarious. And now these are all of my action figures and that Pioneer Electronics that we were all obsessed with. We love Pioneer Home Theater Equipment. They donated all of the equipment in this movie. So thank you, Pioneer. And we kept it all. So thank you again, Pioneer. And it's funny to look at this now because there was the Slave One. You can see the Slave One there. There was an Independence Day alien. There's a Millennium Falcon. There's all kinds of things that I hid in there. Babylon 5.
It's the Legend of the Dark Knight figures.
Yeah, and Yonada was a reference to is the world is hollow and I've touched the sky reference to Star Trek. There's all kinds of the ridiculous references that we put in this movie all over the place. It's endless.
It's a geek movie. This should be in the inner geekdom.
Yeah, well, it's funny because
again,
so many people haven't seen this movie. And I would think it's unfortunate because we were about 5 years too early.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, it to me, like, Kevin Smith is one of my favorite filmmakers. I love Clerks and Mallrats, and this just fits into that, like you said, Mallrats, Swingers, like era of just like suburban, like dialogue-driven people talking about Star Wars and Star Trek.
Yeah, on the back of the DVD it says the best movie that Woody Allen and Kevin Smith never made.
Yeah, I always liked that. And that was definitely, it was definitely like that. I think more Woody Allen than Kevin Smith, but because both Mark and I love Woody Allen movies, especially like Manhattan and Annie Hall and Stardust Memories and all that. And no, it was just fun. It was fun and you can see, for a low budget movie, it's pretty ambitious. Like, okay, we had car mounts on this day, and this is the Golden Apple that was in the Valley that doesn't exist anymore, but I went to Golden Apple all the time. Every Wednesday. And Sharon, who is Bill Leibowitz's wife, is in this movie.
Yeah, she's the woman at the death, I think. And this scene wasn't in it either, I don't think.
I always love this scene. I love this mural, and it's a Star Trek V reference. And
yep. Final Frontier is underrated, as I said last night.
Yeah.
The movie itself, I can't say that, but there are some moments that go unappreciated, such as when Cybok is showing Bones the vision of his father, which every time.
Oh, I agree. It's great.
This comic book sequence is so good. Is this comic book store still there? Or is it actually Golden Apple?
Golden Apple is still there, but this version of Golden Apple, this Valley store is not.
Oh, this is like a time.
Yeah, this is Sharon Leibowitz, who's the actual proprietor of Golden Apple.
Is she still alive?
Sharon's cool. Great. Now this Audie England, who's I think amazing, she now in real life is actually married to Peter Lenkoff, who wrote Demolition Man, and
really,
and the producer of the new Hawaii Five-0, and he's the producer of some new show that's coming on. And it's so funny because Audie, I was too busy with the movie and paying attention to everything, but when I went back and was editing the movie, I was like, my God, Audie England is actually beautiful. She is one of the most incredibly beautiful girls. Mm-hmm. And if you ever want to see something that she was in where you can see just how beautifully she is, watch Zalman King's Delta of Venus. Trust me, look it up. She plays basically Aeneas Nin, and she doesn't wear a lot of clothes in that movie. That's all I'm going to say.
Does she actually write her number on an actual?
Yes,
X-Men
that was my X-Men 266.
Oh God,
I still have it. I still have that issue, and she didn't understand. It was funny. She's like, "Why do you want me to write my number on the actual cover? Like, why do you want me to do that?" And I'm like, "Because it's her way of seeing just how, like, he has to buy the comic now because she's defaced it." And I don't know if this scene actually works as well as it could have. I looked at this scene and I could have done more. Again, being that it was my first feature, there were times when I was scared to like get in and really do what I really wanted, because there was so much to manage and there was so much time, and we were always under time pressure that I just wanted to get what I could get in the can, and worrying about, that's why it's very simply photographed, and it's certainly not David Fincher camera moves and things like that, because it was just really what we shot. We were shooting a 124-page script, and it was rough. It was just rough.
I mean, that was only 2 shots, and it was a dialogue scene, and I thought it worked fine.
Yeah, it works fine, but I would like to have had more
angles,
more coverage. Yeah, it's just
coverage.
But there wasn't anywhere to put the camera. You couldn't move back any further.
I could imagine that place was hard to shoot in. It's small.
Yeah, really hard to shoot in, but luckily I had the camera on a dolly and going back and forth. And
actually, I have to be honest. I actually think the simplicity of the camera movement and what it does works for the scene, because when the character of Robert is first appeared in the film, he seems, he's very driven by 2 things: nerd things and sex.
Right.
And then the scene here shows like how his 2 things are starting to combine.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the simplicity works for it.
One of the things too that I'll say, basically human beings see with the equivalent of a 50mm lens. And what I don't like is shooting anything with 50mm lenses, because that's how we see. And I always think that cinema should show us the world the way we can't see it ourselves. So there's too much 50mm lens in this movie. And if I could do it again, I would not use it as much as I do.
That's a good call.
The difference between what filmmakers can always do on a low budget is get closer than you think you should and get further away. Those are always the marks of low budget. This is very low budget looking right now. I think it works because it's just talking heads, but if you can get further away and closer up, it's always better.
So for these shots, I'm interested. Do you one camera and you edit it together, or did you do 2 cameras?
No, this is always single camera.
Okay.
If I make another comedy, I'm actually up to direct a comedy.
Cool.
I have a new script that I was actually offered, and if I direct it, I'm definitely going to use 2 cameras. The film that I'm editing now was shot mostly with 2 cameras, and it was a revelation, especially when you're doing comedy. You want actors to riff or do any kind of. This was my actual apartment where I lived in Beverly Hills.
That's a nice
apartment. That is not my apartment, but but the exterior was my apartment. I lived on Doheny, 1 block in from the Beverly Hills city limits, in the flats of Beverly Hills, or the slums of Beverly Hills, as they call it. But that's between Olympic and Pico on Doheny. That apartment. I love that apartment. I lived there for 5 years before I got married.
Oh, cool.
Also, I totally endorse you directing a comedy, because I think comedy is probably the best part of this film. It's out of this world.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny too, because I never, I went out with this girl for a long time that didn't think I knew. She thought I knew nothing about comedy and that I wasn't funny. And I'm like, yeah, but I did write a comedy. I got an award from the WGA for. So.
And there's cutaways similar to The Family Guy and Simpsons in this that work really well.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely. I would do more of those.
Yeah. What did you use to edit? Did you?
This I cut on Avid.
Okay.
I started editing on the Avid in about 1995, and then I was almost Avid exclusively up until about 2010. Then I started working on Final Cut, and then there's a movie I edited that's on Netflix right now called Paradox. It's a science fiction low budget sci-fi time travel thriller that I cut. I went back to Avid, and right now the feature I'm cutting, I'm back to Final Cut. But I like Avid, I like Final Cut, Adobe Premiere, and I'm very curious to try and delve into the new DaVinci, because
the color correction software.
You can edit on DaVinci now too, which is great. That's great. Cartoonsville, another great, wacky, colorful location. Now this girl, she is cute as a button, and you should see her now. She's gotten so hot as she's gotten older, and she's also from Seattle, where I'm from in real life, and she's married and has a great kid, and her husband and her are awesome. and we're still friends.
Oh,
so yeah, she's great.
Did this close down like a year or two after you got shot?
Yeah, it was very simple because it was such a novelty restaurant, and kids liked it. But if the food isn't good, kids' restaurants that aren't Chuck E. Cheese's are not going to stick around. But it was cool. I mean, I loved when we found it. It just seemed like, this is the place these characters would go. And I love the fact that Eric McCormick's wearing a vaguely Next Generation sweater. He looks like he's wearing a Next Generation. Yeah, like a cadet uniform from Deep Space Nine or so. Yeah.
Yeah. Eric McCormick, he really likes to use his props.
Right? Yeah, he's an incredible. Normally, as a filmmaker, I dread when. By the way, that purple wig is a reference to the TV series UFO. If you haven't seen that, you should. McCormick loves props, but unlike a lot of actors, in every take, Eric knows exactly what he does with his props. Mm-hmm. So sometimes props in the hands of an actor are an editing nightmare because they're constantly moving things around and they never do the same thing twice. Eric always does the same thing twice.
Yeah, and that makes editing so much easier, I would assume.
Yeah. And this is the real Dan Schweiger, who I work with. He's playing Dan Schweiger, who I work with at Full Moon Entertainment. Dan gave me my first actual real paid editing job on a feature. I recut a movie with Peter Billingsley called Arcade that Full Moon put out. It's about teens. He's wearing an Arcade t-shirt right there. Arcade is a movie, a really low budget movie where teens get sucked into a video game. And John Delancey's in it.
Is this your actual editing studio?
This was at Mindfire Entertainment. This is the room that William Shatner met Rated R in real life. They were actually, Rated R was actually recording a rap record in this studio. And that's where Shatner went and first met Rated R before he made the movie. And The New Gods was another movie that I had edited for a filmmaker named James Boyd. And I've been to festivals with that movie.
I feel so bad for Schweiger during that.
By the way, in this scene, I told Audie to kiss Rafer. Rafer had no idea she was going to kiss him.
So that was a spontaneous?
That was a spontaneous kiss, and Rafer did this spontaneously too. Now, as he fell out of frame, because he had a mad crush on her the whole movie. So I said, I want you to kiss him. And this Japanese garden is at the Tillman Water Reclamation Plant, which is actually Starfleet headquarters from Star Trek: The Next Generation and the subsequent Star Trek shows. And so
God.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
That's Starfleet headquarters.
Now, there's your cameo.
There's one. Yeah, one of them. And then
what's your other one?
I'm at the very end of the movie playing myself directing.
Oh yeah, you are. Never mind.
Yeah. We have a question from the same fan again, Malcolm. He's asking, Malcolm asks, Robert, do you think that you will try and get the sequel that you're working on onto off the ground?
Ooh. Well, by the way, I love this scene. They're actually in the bathtub, and he's reading The Stand, which is one of the longest books ever. It's like 1,200 pages, and they're at the end of the book, which I thought was funny. I would love to get the sequel off the ground. I mean, we've tried and tried. I've tried to raise the money. The problem is the sequel is a much bigger, more ambitious movie, and the budget's around $6 million, and it would be hard. But I would love to do it because the script is really good. By the way, this monster suit that Rafer's wearing was actually used in a late 90s porn film called Bobby Socks. That was one of the first interactive porn DVDs. And my girlfriend found it when I was moving the other day. She goes, "Oh, I found this porn movie, Bobby Socks." I'm like, "Oh, no, I have that because the monster from Free Enterprise is in it."
And now this is the exact location where Kirk fought the Gorn.
Yes, it is. That's Vasquez Rocks. And
damn.
There's my dad in the background playing Dick the bartender. There he is. And by the way, we shot this scene. The heater was broken on the hot tub, and it was a cold night out. And I got in that hot tub first to make sure the actors, it wouldn't be totally horrible. We were boiling water on the stove and dumping it into that hot tub.
Oh wow!
Again, Universal had to let us use that Vertigo poster, and they let us use the thing, and it was great. And then Sean, it's funny because Geek Monthly became a real magazine after this. Mark Altman became the publisher of Geek, and it's coming back. Geek Magazine is coming back yet again, and it'll be in Walmarts near you very soon. So, yeah.
He ad-libbed something in this, right?
Oh, the line with a pan, he was cooking like with a pan and fire. That was an ad-lib. That was take 4, and that was so hilarious. I'm like, oh my god, I'm using that.
Yeah.
But again, when you have an ensemble of actors in a comedy, I encourage them. I encourage improv like that. You know, as long as you get the script in the can and you let actors go and see what they come up with, and you never know.
You could get gold.
Yeah, good actors will always surprise you.
I mean, I Love You, I Know was an improv.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, the thing with actors when you're doing it, especially when you're doing a scene like this, when how do you as the director figure how much should be kept to the script and how much should be completely improvised?
Well, you know, what you do is you just shoot the scenes and you sort of allow them to develop. And if you shoot the first couple of takes, and I mean, you also realize that your script isn't as good as you thought it was. And these guys in real life, Patrick Van Horn was really good friends with like Vince Vaughn, and in real life they were the funniest dudes ever. So I'm just like, if you come up with something, please don't hesitate to say it, and they'll always give you gold. I mean, Vince Vaughn and Patrick Van Horn, they really were swingers. All that was real.
That's a butt. Yeah.
Yeah, Rayford was all upset. We had to put makeup on his ass because you want to make sure he looked good.
By the way, I have to mention, it's something rare that comedies don't do nowadays. The visual comedy in this movie is out of this world.
Oh, thank you.
There are just some visual cues that you can pick up, and I was really surprised by this.
Timing is great. Timing is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan. Like, I like all of that. And I like really naturalistic comedies. I mean, I like character-based comedies. I'm not so much, like, to me, like, I could watch Get Him to the Greek over and over and over again. I don't know why I love Get Him to the Greek so much. But everything about that, like, I love the scene with Sean Combs at the beginning of Get Him to the Greek where he's yelling at his employees. I mean, Sean Combs, I want to work with Sean Combs one day, and I'm just going to tell him, I'm like, dude, I have watched that scene 100 times just watching Sean Combs do Sergio, the boss of the record company. I just love all of that stuff. And like this, again,
the cutaway's great.
He's wearing he's wearing a dress uniform that we made it look kind of like Star Trek, but not really like Star Trek. So, and again, a Star Trek line that's kind of the line, but not really the line. And Can't Do It, Sally's a reference to The Godfather when Abe Vigoda asks Tom Hagen if he won't get executed. Tom Hagen says, I can't do it, Sally.
Well, because that's what happens when you betray your boss to a really dickish, which boss was it again, though?
Well, it was the Salazzo. It's Victor Salazzo, and then of course Barzini.
Barzini, there we go. Thank you.
And this is again a full moon scene. We shot this 2 ways. One with a Christmas ornament. If we couldn't, the Christmas ornament we had a hard time clearing because Paramount didn't clear it, but Hallmark cleared it. We figured, we can plead ignorance. Hallmark cleared the ornament, so I shot that also with a first edition of The Dark Tower, the Donald Grant copy of The Dark Tower. And Schweiger's wearing a Dawn of the Dead shirt because Dawn of the Dead is one of my favorite movies of all time, Romero's version.
All right, guys, we are 5 seconds away from the hour mark. 4, 3, 2, 1. And Robert in the comments has a question for you as well. 2 things. 1, nice name. 2, what part of the job do you find most fulfilling? Directing, editing, or writing?
Well, they're so very different, and for me, I think they're all part of the same thing. I mean, it's different phases of telling your story. Like, the thing about being a writer is you're sitting in front of a blank page all by yourself, and you're sort of alone with your thoughts, making up whatever you want to make up. And it's both challenging and incredibly gratifying. one of the great things about directing is you're working with an incredible ensemble of talented people, not just the actors, but your production designer, your cinematographer, the art department, everybody, even your fellow producers coming up with locations. It's so much fun. It's very social. Directing is very social. And then when you're editing, the great thing about editing is you've got this finished material. And what's so cool about having the finished material is you're again alone with the director, or you're alone yourself just editing, and it's instant creativity. You're smashing images together and you're actually making the film. They're very, very different disciplines that all offer joys. I find writing the hardest. I'm so distracted and it's hard to sit down because a blank page, and you have to fill 90 to 120 blank pages, and it's rough. It's rough. But if you kind of know where you're going, then it isn't rough. But it's hard. Like when you come up with an original idea, how do you bring that original idea to life? And it's never easy. I find directing, producing, and editing easier.
Can I ask, sorry, with this scene in particular, given what happened a year after this movie with William, is this scene like particularly difficult down the line now, or with talking about love? And
are you talking about his wife passing away?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something. Noreen Kidd, his wife at the time, his third wife, was delightful. And she was such a nice lady. She came down to set. She loved what we were doing. Is this the edit you hate, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
The dissolve to black.
Dissolve to black.
Yeah, I hate it too.
Yeah.
I would fix that. It's rough. I mean, it's rough. And Shatner, we were going to go to Cannes together. She was supposed to come to the Cannes Film Festival, and I didn't know that she'd had a substance abuse problem. And we bought her tickets for the Concorde, her and Bill. But she ended up not coming, and we didn't know that she was in the midst of a struggle. And it was really sad. And, what was even worse is that when she passed away, Shatner was at his daughter Leslie's birthday in Orange County. He wasn't even home. And there were all these people that were telling me, Bill killed his wife. And I'm like, come on, man. I mean, really?
That's disgusting.
I got a lot of that. And she was such a nice lady, and it wasn't like that at all. And it was really unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How was it like going to the Cannes Film Festival and stuff with William Shatner?
Oh my God. It was incredible. I mean, we weren't in the festival. We were at the film market there. Oh, okay. But Shatner, he presented that outfit he was wearing in the last scene to Planet Hollywood at Cannes. I mean, it was a dream come true, hanging out at dinner, walking on the Quisette with him. I mean, it was so science fiction. I mean, it was literally like I never thought I'd be with my childhood idol at the Cannes Film Festival. And I'll tell you a funny story. When you're in Cannes, all you do is promote your movie. And we were at this really beautiful, we weren't with Shatner, but Altman and I were at this really beautiful party at this chateau, but it was really boring and stuffy. And I was, as you might know, I was really drunk. And I was outside the pool where there was all these Greek statues, and I got on the diving board. And I said, wait, everyone, there's hundreds of people at this party. I said, everybody, I'm here to promote my film Free Enterprise, starring William Shatner, and what I do now. I hope you'll remember and come see our screening tomorrow. And I was fully clothed, and I leapt off the diving board and dove into the pool at this very shishi party at the Cannes Film Festival. And the best part was that somebody asked Shatner in an interview the next day if he had heard about me diving into the pool. And Shatner asked the interviewer, he said, well, what did you think about Rob diving into the pool? And the interviewer said, I thought that's hilarious. I mean, everybody's so stuffy here, and he dove into the pool. And Shatner's like, I told him to do it. But the best thing about it was there's Empire Magazine, which is one of my favorite magazines still. It's a film magazine out of the UK. Empire Magazine, their Darth Maul cover, when they were covering the Cannes Film Festival, their Darth Maul cover had a bunch of pictures, like a collage of pictures. And there's a picture of me in mid-dive And underneath the caption, it said, "Another nameless director in a shameless act of self-promotion."
Oh.
So when I write my geek memoirs, that's going to be the title of my memoirs: "Another nameless director in a shameless act of self-promotion."
It sucks that scene we just passed got cut where he got fired.
Yeah, I never got fired actually from Full Moon.
Yeah.
Full Moon ran out of money, but I love that scene where he gets fired. I loved it because, yeah, it was a great scene, and I love seeing Carl Bressler as Mort Berg. If you should all become friends with Carl Bressler on Facebook and tell him I sent you because he's awesome.
Oh, cool.
No, I really love that scene just because of how he talks about, like, not every movie's Jurassic Park, like, but you gotta love it. Just as someone who writes, like, small films, like, not every movie's gonna be the biggest ever, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't show it any less love and just work.
Right, and my career has been that way. I've worked on a lot of low-budget movies that no one ever saw, but I still put as much hard work into them as anything else. And I honestly believe that.
It's a good lesson. It's a shame it got cut from its original release.
Yeah.
Now, I love this scene because at the end of it, when he does the Star Wars line, in my mind, I said, in that moment, I would have said that line. Just
right.
The way she sets it out, I'm like, I would have said it.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I love it. It's funny, we stole this shot. We shot this in Palos Verdes, and it's actually on this hillside. There was an empty lot between these two giant mansions, and we were just driving around. Because we couldn't shoot the climax on the beach, I thought it was really important to get outside again. So we drove to this location, and I waited to see when the sun would go down. And I know we only had like another scene we shot entirely in 3 hours, and I timed it to get that sunset shot at the end, and it worked out well. I think it looks good. And this is basically, there's no lighting; it's all natural light. This is all magic hour lighting.
Isn't it crazy what filmmakers will do for sunsets? Damien Chazelle in La La Land, now Robert Burnett, and
how
many days did you shoot this scene?
This scene was just a 3 hour long scene. We had 3 hours to shoot this entire scene, and again, a lot of this movie, because we were always doing company moves. I mean, we shot in like 40 locations in 24 days. It was insane.
It's probably the best cinematography in the movie.
Oh, it's gorgeous, and there's no lights. You know? Chuck Barbie with his prime lenses. And I love this location. I mean, if you were to bring the camera up, you'd see we're just in a residential neighborhood. It's amazing for all you young filmmakers out there, remember, it's not your location, it's what your camera can see in the location. So you might have something you think is totally unacceptable or not usable, but then realize that, oh, wait a minute. If the camera is moved 1 inch or to one side or the other, we would see a bunch of houses. But if it's not, look at what you get. And you'd never know.
Yeah. This looks so much better in a widescreen than that standard definition version.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't stand I don't even know why they've allowed. I'm really upset about the fact it's on Amazon in 4:3. It's just like, why would you do that?
Everyone's like all of these shots.
Oh yeah. I mean, look at that hill. How cool is that hill? Where do you see that in LA? By the way, I don't hate The Next Generation. It just, when we were writing it, it just seemed funny.
Do you still prefer Deep Space Nine over it?
I do, but I think The Next Generation is what created modern Star Trek, and there's a lot to love in Next Generation. It's just DS9's a little bit more adult. This Jerry's Deli, these are two different Jerry's Delis. The exterior was the Jerry's Deli that no longer exists on 3rd in Beverly Hills, and now this is the Jerry's Deli out at the marina that we shot at late night. There's an anal sex joke, because you can never go wrong with anal sex jokes and chocolate milkshakes.
Is this the scene that was 7 pages long?
Yes.
Yeah.
This scene went on and on and on and on. And Sean Polofsky, by the way, was hilarious in the audition. She's a friend of Jeff Goldsmith's. I had never really met her. And she came in, and during the audition, she signed and did part of her dialogue as if she was deaf. And I thought it was the funniest thing ever. It was a choice an actor made. And I hired her on the spot. I'm like, yeah, you get the job. Because she took what was kind of a not very well written scene and did something unique and funny with it. I don't think all actors are capable of pulling it off as well as she did, especially in the audition. but it was still great. It was still great. And again, look at the practical Jerry's location.
Yep.
You could never get a set to look like this without on a low budget. You just couldn't.
And so many practical lights.
Yeah, which I love. I mean, all those lights in the background.
Hey, Robert, I'm curious. What do you prefer to film on, digital or film?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I am a big proponent of technology. Filmmaking has always been made better by the advent of technology. Stop motion animation gives way to CGI, so we have great creatures. I think that I am not a big fan of what happens to film prints. I think digital now is incredible. And I'm like, look at the practical lights reflecting there. It's great. But I am not like Christopher Nolan. I mean, I understand why he loves film and all that, but I totally am the James Cameron, David Fincher school of technology. Modern technology, digital capture technology is so incredible now, and you have so much leeway in post. I'm all about it.
Fair enough. I was just curious.
But I love seeing. I love prints. I love the look of photochemical processes, but it's so hard to see a good print these days.
Yeah, I will agree to that completely. I just was thinking about after so when you were with Star Trek Next Generation and the restoration of that, and I know you were doing the special features for that, but that was something that I just was really thinking about with how they had to get all the original prints for that.
Oh, it was amazing. And no doubt. I mean, here as a storage medium, I'm a firm believer in doing celluloid color separations to store a film, because films digitally, who knows where we're going to be in 20 or 30 years. And you have to have some kind of a celluloid master of your film in order for it to age. There's movies that have come out in the early aughts that you can't see anymore because the technology, they haven't transfer them to different digital formats. So like I really want to get back into this and do a high definition version, if only for the future.
Would you
only exists?
I'm gonna tell you right now, if you honest to God do it, we will do our best to promote the ever living fuck out of it.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I'll come in and I mean, that'd be great. I don't control the movie, unfortunately. Mark Altman and Mark Gottwald do. And, I was going to do La La Land Records has the rights to release the movie on home video. And La La Land, of course, puts out all the great Star Trek soundtracks. They did the original series soundtrack box set. They're amazing. But because of the Axonar lawsuits, CBS forbid La La Land to release. They said it's probably a good idea that you don't release Free Enterprise on Blu-ray. So it's sort of in limbo. And I'm hoping to get it out at least for its 20th anniversary. Its theatrical release is June 4th, 1999. So I would hope that I can get it out in HD and do a special edition by then. But, I really need to do it right. I need about, I'd say about $50,000. And no one's going to pony up the money. So I don't know where I'm going to get the budget to do it in HD.
Oh, yeah. Would you also re-edit it too? Like, would you make another extended cut?
Yeah, I would do it. I would trim it. I'll tell you a funny story. Tom DeSanto, who I met through Bryan Singer on the X-Men movies, Tom DeSanto loved the script for Free Enterprise 2 and had a really interesting idea. He wanted to take this to Netflix and do it as I would use this, and we would cut this into 4 episodes, and then I would do 4 more new episodes using this Free Enterprise 2 script and do it as an 8-part Netflix series. And he was gung-ho about doing this, and I tried to involve Mark Altman in it, and Mark Altman pissed off Tom DeSanto and said, "I'm sorry, Rob, but I have no more interest in working on it," which is unfortunate.
That would have been a great binge.
Yeah, I know. I still think we could do it.
Yeah.
And get the original cast back. This is Kira Deanda, another girl I really liked on the set. She was great. It's funny. I lost touch with all these. There were so many great women that were in this film, but I lost touch with all of them, which is too bad.
Was this scene almost cut?
No, but there was a lot more to this scene because one of the things that suffers is Robert's breakup with his girlfriend. It just got too long, and there were scenes that didn't work that well. But again, I would go rework this. There was a great scene where he has a conversation with his girlfriend, Audie, but it seemed like once she broke up with him, she already told him everything that she needed to tell him, and the conversation was a bit redundant. But it looked great because he was walking through downtown Hollywood, and it was a cool exterior, and so
shot it.
Oh yeah, it was all shot. There's a lot in this movie that we shot that didn't wind up in the film. That's why I would like to go revisit the film. I mean, I've learned so much about editing in the intervening 20 years that I think I can make a much better version of this film.
Do you have access to the raw footage?
Well, I'd have to. Mark Altman would have to make sure that I would. But I've produced both previous versions of the movie, so no one's actually ever touched the film but me. Technically, they could. I don't have any claim to this film, but I would hope that they would let me do it. I don't think they wouldn't, but yeah, it would be great to do it. This scene was so funny because we permitted this scene and we went to shoot this basketball. It was going to be a much more elaborate scene, but the basketball courts were full of people playing basketball, and we didn't exactly want to disturb them because they didn't look friendly. So I basically said, okay, we're going to run this. We're just going to run the camera and shoot this scene in about 10 minutes, which we did. And it turned out to be pretty funny that they never made a basket. That's the real Mark Altman right there.
Yep. Was this the last thing they shot together?
Yes, it was. This was very late in the movie.
Yeah.
And I did like this scene. I thought that, again, I love the idea of the way that Robert and Sean hang out together. I love the way that Dan and Mark hang out together. So that's another reason why I added the walk and talk back in earlier on, because I liked the parallel relationships that the friends had.
Yeah.
So, and then Mark missing another basket.
At least you guys got good sound regardless of the other people playing.
Yeah, now this whole stretch in this club was all shot in one day, and it was rough. This was the longest day of production of the movie. That's my real dad. That's my dad playing Dick the bartender. And everything that happens in this club, it took about 15 hours to shoot with all the extras and everything. But it was the only day that we went over. You don't want to go over on an independent movie. We're shooting 12 hours a day. And when you go over, it becomes very expensive. So this scene was all shot in one day, and Shatner was just hilarious the whole time.
Was it because he was on set that you only had him for a limited time that it was like that?
Yes. And we only had him for 5 days. Or no, he worked 4 days on the movie. That was it. We had him for 4 days. And for me, one of the great thrills of my life is having my father in a scene with William Shatner. And that cigar is actually one of my dad's. And my dad telling me to pay cash because my dad had been dealing with me borrowing money my whole life, and it was just so funny to have my dad. My dad passed away in 2008, but it was great to or 2007, but it was great to have him in the movie. He loved being on the set. He loved it. When I told him I wanted him to be in a movie, he didn't understand that it was a real movie. I thought it was another one of my student films. And when he shows up on this set, there was 100 people, extras, and all the crew, and he couldn't believe it.
He must have been so proud.
He wrote me a letter afterwards telling me how proud he was of me, and it's one of my prized possessions. I mean, my dad was he just couldn't believe the whole thing, and how it all went down. And this, everything went off without a hitch. So
except
I love this. Yeah. It was a long day, but we budgeted for that. We knew
okay, cool.
It was planned.
Oh, so it was planned. It wasn't like it went overtime.
Right. And this scene, the focus is a little buzzed on this scene because, again, the producers were telling me I didn't have enough time to shoot this scene. And I'm like, yes, we will. I told my DP, Chuck Barbie, I said, Chuck, we had a steady cam this day. Let's just put the camera on the steady cam. We'll shoot it from one direction twice and the other direction twice. And whatever I get, I'll get. And that's what you get. You get this great scene. And while the focus is buzzed, I figured, all right, they're drunk, so they're getting a little tipsy. Now I could, with digital technology, sharpen it up a little. But
see, I assumed that. it was purposely out of focus on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, that was because they told me that it couldn't. I did say it's going to be buzzed. And I said, it doesn't matter if it's buzzed. They're getting drunk. It's fine.
I think it works beautifully.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Shatner saying this whole story about, but I think I can do it, is the central gist of the whole movie. That's what the idea of free enterprise is, that you can create anything, using your own wherewithal, your own gumption. That's what free enterprise is. I think I can do it.
Where did this whole notion of a musical version of Shakespeare come from?
Well, you know what? It was really interesting. That was a crazy idea that Mark had when we had to rewrite the script to make Shatner a real guy. But originally it was Titus Andronicus. And the thing about Titus Andronicus, our great friend Alan Spencer, who created the 80s comedy series Sledgehammer, he's in the movie. Alan Spencer said to us, no one knows Titus Andronicus. If you made it Julius Caesar, you could make it much funnier. And that came, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your money, or won't you have to stab yourself in the back? Well, I've done it before. I mean, it was much, it wrote itself. So Alan Spencer, a very smart, very great writer in his own right, came up with the Julius Caesar element.
Yeah.
And then it was funny because the rappers that we actually met, I thought, well, if we have rappers in the movie, they have to recognize him as being T.J. Hooker. They don't, they don't know Star Trek. They know T.J. Hooker because he's a cop. And I just thought that was kind of a funny, because I wanted to work in, we didn't have any good T.J. Hooker references in the script. So I was always like looking, how can I work in more T.J. Hooker? And the rappers are like, of course they call him 5-0. I mean, that was funny. Why wouldn't they? I mean, when I moved to LA, Colors had come out. I lived through the LA riots, so why not? So I think I can do it. It's the best moment in the movie. I think I can do it. And then this is good too. Deborah Van Valkenburg, who was in The Warriors and Too Close for Comfort, she's fantastic. Even though I apologize, Deborah, we misspelled your name in the opening credits.
Which you'll probably fix.
I will fix that as well. Yeah.
Did you fix it for this version, or did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't fix it because I would have had to have those opening credits back in the day when render the opening credits cost $10,000, and it was one long render. It was a 3-day long render, and
that opening sequence was
$10,000 back. Now I could get somebody to do it for 6 cents. And again, I love this 50-50 shot of them. It lasts a long time, but it works really, really well.
I love this. Yeah, it's a good long shot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, and then they keep looking over, and then I love this next shot. It's so funny when he bounces around like a pinball,
and he knocks into everybody.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
Were the actors on set? Oh God!
That's Mark Gottwald who paid for the movie. She was one of our customers. She was really cute. There's my dad again, which is great. And it's just so funny.
Were the extras starstruck?
Yeah, a little bit, but they're usually professional. Extras are always pretty professional, and I love this. Shatner, when he says worlds may change, galaxies disintegrate, those are lines of dialogue from the Star Trek episode Conscience of the King. And of course, Shatner didn't remember that. And I was just behind the monitor giggling with glee that I've made William Shatner say these lines from a Star Trek episode. and he would never know. And it was just, he does it so great.
Did he ever find out?
No. Okay. Shatner could never know that we were Star Trek fans. He thought we were young, independent filmmakers with an entrepreneurial spirit. If he knew we were fanatical Star Trek fans, he never would have agreed to do the movie.
Yeah, some of them are crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of parallels to Galaxy Quest in this movie.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the original title after we were going to call we almost had to do a fictional version of Star Trek where it would have been called Solar Quest, and that was pre-Galaxy Quest.
God.
So if we couldn't use Shatner,
did this come out the year of Galaxy Quest?
Yes.
Yeah, 99. Was Galaxy Quest 99?
Do you think that had an effect on the box office?
Well, I don't know. I was up I was on a short list to direct Galaxy Quest.
Oh my goodness!
It was like me and Harold Ramis and Peyton Reed and a couple other guys. The only movies that I got offered after this were Dude, Where's My Car? And Freddy Got Fingered, the Tom Green movie. And I almost got Dude, Where's My Car? But it used to be a total pro-drug movie. And I wanted to make a stoner, a modern Cheech and Chong meets Repo Man. I thought that was really cool. And then they decided to cut all the drugs out of it, so they went with the other director.
A Robert Meyer Burnett version of Galaxy Quest is something I really wish we had in our lives.
Well, I love Galaxy Quest. I mean, I don't know if I could have done anything better. I mean, it's such a great movie.
No. Is this based on Conquest for Planet of the Apes?
No, this is actually from Logan's Run, the movie Logan's Run from 1976. And Sean Jordan of a company called Synaptic came and did those visual effects of the dome city you see like right there. And
cool.
and this is something I'd love to go back and revisit because I have a lot more footage from this dream sequence I didn't use, and I can make it a little bit more Baroque. But I love the dome city in the background. I had that done for the special edition.
Yeah. Oh, all these visual effects are redone?
Yeah, they were not the original.
Oh, yeah. It's hard to tell because the original is against standard def.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. And again, those Geek Magazine covers were created by the real Sean Fanning that Patrick Van Horn's playing.
It's fantastic.
And the movie Charade, one of my favorite movies. It's great to have that poster in it. Audrey Hepburn. And this is I love this scene. This is actually outside at the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
It's another scene that we shot at the Garden of Eden that very long night.
Was everything at the Garden of Eden shot that one night, or was it?
It was shot over 2 days. It was multiple. It was 2 days.
This speech he has when he quotes that Shrek line is amazing.
Yeah, Return to Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's funny because he did this like 8 times, but he didn't want to rehearse it. But it's a long camera push in because I wanted to shoot it like they shot Kirk in the episode. This is actually the first take.
Whoa. And it's one long shot.
It's one long shot. I mean, I do interrupt it with 2 cutaways, but just like the original. But like this cutaway and then the cutaway. But the cutaways are done just like the original episode. I just thought this was hilarious. I mean, McCormick is so funny in this scene. And the Wagnerian thing came out of a real thing. I mean, my friend Sean used to say Wagnerian all the time in real life, and I would give him a hard time. I'm like, dude, it's Wagner. It's Wagnerian. It's not Wagnerian. And so I put it in the movie, which he never forgave me for. He's like, "Why do you have to make me look stupid, dude?" I go, "People don't know it's you. It's a character in a movie."
By the way, the lighting and the framing in this very shot is just crazy because the table is all lit up because it's white compared to everything else, and then the framing of the other 2 characters zooming in onto
Yeah, I told Chuck, I said I want it to look like Robbie Richardson, who shot like JFK and works with Quentin Tarantino now. I want this really hot white element in it, and then push into the face.
Whenever an actor is underlit, lit like that, they look epic. It's fantastic.
Oh, I know. Well, it's like Ridley Scott uses like single source lighting a lot for what he does, and I mean, McCormick is so good here, and Scott Spock, that was his real name. I love the piece of music he wrote for this scene, which was great.
His last name was Spock?
Yes, the composer's name, his real name is Scott Spock, but that's not why he got the job.
It just looks good.
It does look good.
Yeah, it was.
No, I thought that was a joke name because there's a lot of joke credits at the end.
Yeah, no, it's a real name. His real name is Scott Spock.
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome. Now, okay, so who did the cinematography on this? Because my God, this for I'm assuming you shot this in '98 for a 98 shot film. Most of these angles are fucking gorgeous.
Well, thank you. I mean, I worked really hard. Chuck Barbie, who shot this, he had shot this movie called Nebraska that I had edited before I made this movie, and I loved his cinematography. And I kept saying, no. I kept saying, dude, if I ever get to make this movie, you've got to shoot it. And he and I watched a bunch of movies together. And I'm really heavily influenced by a Chinese director named Wong Kar-wai. And I loved the movies he made, like Chungking Express and Fallen Angels, which are two basically the same movie split up. But he did like In the Mood for Love, and he did The Grandmaster. He's one of my favorite filmmakers. But I was really influenced by Chungking Express and Fallen Angels, which don't really look like this movie, but I like that. I mean, I love shots like this and having the static in the frame. But yeah, again, it's a function of that shot. The prime lenses make the lines. I like using the lines of the sets, or the lines created on the sets, to frame people's faces. Kind of like how Eric's face here is in between the two shelves, you know, and the lines of the TV here always draw. I'm always trying to use the lines of the sets to draw your eye toward people's faces.
I'm sorry, Rob, you need to get hired more by these studios.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, unfortunately, it's been so long. It's like I didn't make a movie at all. So I'm trying to get another movie off the ground. I mean, it's my great. I spent my whole life trying to make movies, and then, you know, you think when you've achieved that, I made this movie, and I thought, okay, I'm a filmmaker now, and then I needed to survive, and I was getting married, so I fell into the DVD world, and it was making good money for me, and I loved it because I was a fan, but I should have been more like Bryan Singer and relentlessly pursued directing, which I'm going to get back into. I mean, there's a couple of projects, and I will direct again, probably in the next year.
That'd be great.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
It's actually funny. You share the same kind of thing as someone who I follow. You might recognize the name Casey Neistat. He said he made an HBO series called The Neistat Brothers, and then he said, "I made it. I'm done." And then he like stopped pursuing his stream, and then a month later, like he was dropped, and he lost all of his money. He spent it all, and then he actually finally realized, in order to like achieve your goal, is to do it all the time. And it was just, you know, it's a weird kind of awakening thing like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was rough. I had an agent. I was a William Morris client for like a year. I mean, they had me I was working on a project, believe it or not, with Bill Cosby, but I wasn't getting paid up front. It was a spec project. And I was a William Morris client for a year, and then I wasn't an earner. I didn't earn any money. So I was dropped by William Morris, even though I almost got 2 gigs. You know, I really thought I was going to get Dude, Where's My Car? But I didn't.
Yeah. Is that movie any good?
It's all right. I mean, I think Dude, Where's My Car is kind of funny. But then I went on to produce movies. So I developed and produced Agent Cody Banks, and then I produced The Hills Run Red with my good buddy Dave Parker, who's in this movie.
That still amazes me that you produced Agent Cody Banks, because I remember that was the first movie I saw more than 2 times in the theaters, because for some freaking reason in 2002 I was a Frankie Muniz fan, and I was a Hilary Duff fan, and I was an Arnold Vosloo fan, so it's like, yeah,
that was the height of Lizzie McGuire and what's his Malcolm in the Middle.
Oh yeah, and you know, it's funny, if you watch that, the main credits, the main titles come at the end of the movie. There's 13 producers on Agent Cody Banks, and they all share title cards. But when I'm just I'm listed as a co-producer, but I have a single card credit, which is hard to get in Hollywood. And my name is emblazoned across the screen. So it looks like I'm much more important than I really am, which is great.
How did you score that?
Oh, it's a very long, protracted story, but I'm the only single card credited producer on both Agent Cody Banks and its god-awful sequel, Agent Cody Banks 2 Destination London.
That's nostalgic. That's the first DVD I ever owned. But so in the scene we just saw, we saw Mark and Rob trying to compare themselves to Kirk and Spock.
Right.
When you guys were writing that, were you making those comparisons as well, or was it just naturally when you got to that scene you realized?
No, I mean, we would always compare. Like, obviously, we all wanted to be Kirk. But, you know, Mark was from New York, and he was much more analytical and much more pessimistic and much more. And I've always been Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky, like, hey, man, let's go. And so it was easy to write that scene. And especially, of course, the movie are thinly veiled caricatures of us. So we weren't so slavishly devoted to our own personas. So we could move out move away from ourselves, which was great. It's funny, Gabrielle, who's in this movie, is now a very successful television producer. She was a writer. She was an executive producer on The Flash last season. She has a great television career. The real Dan Weber it's funny, all my friends that I came up with have all done very well for the most part. And it's nice to see.
Let me guess, Hollywood Galaxy's closed down.
It's closed down. It's terrible.
God damn it. I would love to walk this. I would love to go to this kind of establishment because,
it was cool. And again, you know, I wanted to shoot in the movie theater when they were screaming back at the screen, but we couldn't get the rights to use Star Trek 2. So we just had them come out of the. So it's you know,
it worked.
Yeah, it's cool.
I mentioned to Chris when we were watching the film, I'm like, I wish I would have loved to seen that bit where he got kicked out of the theater.
Yeah, it was probably rights issues. Yeah.
Yeah, it was scripted, but I love the way this scene looks. This is natural light, practical light. It always looked this way.
It's just funny how this movie is like a time capsule of 1998, and like most of these places are gone. It's fascinating.
Yeah, they really are gone. It's too bad because a lot of people have contacted me when they come out to LA. They want to go to this place or that place, but the important places like the Redondo Beach Pier or Vasquez Rocks, they're still there.
Oh, cool.
You know, you can still go visit where they shot Arena. And then this is actually the Charlie Chaplin stage, which is now Jim Henson Productions.
Oh,
which exists. Yeah, it's on La Brea Avenue, and I think you can go take a tour of it. But this stage, it worked out really well because this whole scene was supposed to be the beach party.
Yeah. And
we changed it, and when we couldn't use the beach, everyone's like, "Well, Rob, what are you going to do?" I'm like, literally, this is how the movie would go. People would go, "What are we going to do? Where are we going to shoot the climax of the movie?" And I'd be like, well, Rob he did work at Full Moon. He'll just call Schweiger up, and they'll set the party on a soundstage. Done. And everyone's like, "Okay, we'll do that." And it's so people ask, like, "What's your vision for this movie?" My vision was just to get through it.
That's filmmaking 101.
Yeah. And because so much stuff that I planned, and I had storyboards, and I had done all this stuff. Like these lighting fixtures were supposed to be buried in the sand, but these lighting fixtures are supposed to be redolent of a Space 1999 episode called The Guardian of Peary. So there's a deep cut for you.
How long did it take to light this entire warehouse?
Oh my God, this was a nightmare. We had 3 days to shoot in there, and lighting this whole stage took 8 hours. It was the longest night of my life. It was the only day I had a trailer, and I go into my trailer, and there's all my friends hanging out in the trailer. And really what I wanted to do is just go in the trailer and cry because I was so stressed out. But it worked out. I mean, we got I would like to have had a lot longer to shoot this scene, but you know, we got what we got, and it still works. I love it because this actress who's playing Laura Hofferman, it's on the documentary. She said, at 4 a.m, she says, "Who do I have to fuck to get out of here?" And I'm like, well, I'm too tired, but I'm sure somebody will. But yeah, it was cool. All these lighting fixtures, it turned out great. There's the real Dave Parker in the background who directed The Hills Run Red.
Oh, cool.
And by the way, this song, Shake, is a single from Andrew Ridgeley, the other half of Wham.
Oh,
and he put out a single album, an album where he was solo called Son of Albert. And I think I'm the only person in the world who would ever use a song from Andrew Ridgeley's solo record. And Shatner in this scene was supposed to be wearing a nice, like an Armani suit. And the rappers brought him this velour tracksuit.
That's great.
And those chains. And Shatner comes up to me kind of sheepishly, and he goes, Rob, what would you think if I wore this in the scene? And I was like, I looked at it, and I'm like, Bill, this is what you always tell an actor. You're like, if it's your choice, I think it's a fantastic choice. I mean, I couldn't have dreamt of him wearing something better. I never would have asked Shatner to wear this, but because it was his idea and the rappers gave it to him, it's just the greatest thing in the world. And I every time I see it, I look at it and it warms my heart. Shatner is wearing a velour tracksuit.
This scene, though, it's weird because this is like exemplifies the entire meaning of the movie, and this whole scene was cut from the original.
Yeah, some of it's in the original, but his
Some
whole
of it,
story, and it was a big mistake to cut this scene from the film, and I absolutely thought it was a mistake, and that was
so good.
Yeah, he tells a story,
Mhm.
and everyone's at the time I was convinced to cut the movie down, and. I shouldn't have, and that's why that was why I wanted to redo the movie, mostly to put this scene back in the film.
And it's on the soundtrack.
Yes, the soundtrack there is a secret track if you have the soundtrack record. If you have the soundtrack CD, at 3 minutes after the last song plays, there's silence for 3 minutes and 22 seconds because Shatner's birthday is March 22nd. That's why I made it 3 minutes and 22 seconds. And then there is a secret track that uses this story in a very interesting way. So buy the soundtrack album.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the soundtrack album.
I'm also gonna buy it tonight. I'm not even saying this just to kiss your ass. I'm seriously gonna buy it tonight.
Now here's the thing. I think you have to buy the actual hard copy because I don't know if it's part of the digital download.
Yeah, it's not on digital download, but it's cheap on eBay. It's like $10.
Yeah. The soundtrack is really great.
It's not on Amazon though, for whatever reason.
It's hard to find.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because as soon as I heard She Sells Sanctuary startup, I'm like, God damn it, you just had to bring it in. One of my favorite late 80s bands, Robert, God bless you for that.
Oh, well, then I've got to tell you a story. So when I was making the movie, my music supervisor, Spring Aspers, who's now head of like Sony Music, she says to me, well, Ian Astbury, the lead singer of the Cult, he wants to let you use the song She Sells Sanctuary, but he has to meet with you first to discuss why you want it. And I'm like, you mean I get to go meet and sit down with Ian Astbury? And Spring is like, yes. So I went to his like manager's office and I sat down with Ian Astbury like for 2 hours and told him about Sanctuary and Logan's Run and what the song meant and how much I love the album Love because it came out when I was in college and I had seen the Cult 4 times live. And Ian Astbury's like, really? Well, what 4 shows did you see? And I had to run them down with him, and he had to know for a fact that I was sincere. And then he allowed me to use She Sells Sanctuary. And I told him I have to use the long version, not the single version, because I had to have him this chanting at the beginning underneath Billy Duffy's guitar playing. He's like, that's okay with me.
I can only that's awesome. Then I can only imagine how the conversation with Matthew Vaughn went when he needed for that one for the scene in Layer Cake when Daniel Craig goes to meet with the character of Jimmy and Gene.
You know, it's funny. I've always wondered about that. I wondered if he had to make that call or he had to kiss the ring as well. But I certainly did, and it was great. I mean, that was just one of the so many interesting things happened on the making of this movie, and that was one of them. You know, meeting Ian Astbury was a great moment.
Can I ask, what was the budget of the total film?
This movie was actually shot for about $600,000.
That's not much.
No, it was shot for about $600,000, and we had $100,000 music budget. And we shot for about $600,000, and the whole budget was, I don't know, around $1 million, I think, totally.
That's amazing.
And this is Alan Spencer, who told us to use Julius Caesar, and this is the creator of Sledgehammer. He had a show recently with Eddie Izzard called Bullet in the Face. And this is my friend Darren Doctorman, who just randomly made this up. And this girl, Natalie Joy, just saw that we were shooting in front of the theater when they first meet Shatner, and I thought she was really cute. And I'm like, well, why don't you come be in the movie? So she did.
Are these guys DVD producers?
No, Alan Spencer's a real TV writer and producer, and Darren Doctorman did the special effects for the Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Darren is a production illustrator. He's working on season 2 of Westworld right now.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah. So Darren, and he's worked on everything. I mean, look up Darren Doctorman's IMDb page. It's amazing.
How did you go about telling Shatner that he was going to rap?
Well, it was his idea. I mean, originally I wanted him.
It was.
It was very funny. Originally, I wanted him to sing the Prince song "Sexy
That's my favorite joke in the
Motherfucker."
whole film. Sorry.
Yeah, and he was going to sing Prince's "Sexy Motherfucker" because I'm a huge Prince fanatic, and we couldn't get the song. Prince wanted $35,000 for it.
Oh,
And
wow.
so Shatner was like, well, why don't, since we're, he was just going to come out and he goes, why don't we make the joke about Julius Caesar come around? Why don't we do a number? And if Shakespeare was writing today, he'd probably write rap songs and iambic pentameter, and rap is the poetry of the streets. Why don't I do a rap song? And it just so happened that we saw earlier that recording studio, rappers were in that recording studio. So I went down and I asked these rappers if they wanted to do a rap song with William Shatner. And they looked at me like I was crazy, and then Shatner came and met with them, and they laid down some fat beats, and that's where it all came from.
Damn.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. So it was Shatner's idea to do a rap song.
That's I would never have thought of that. He would be so it was his idea. Damn.
Oh, the best part was when he came to meet with the rappers, he rolls up blaring NWA Straight Outta Compton. And in his brand new convertible green Jaguar. And I think that he ingratiated himself right then and there. But the real funny story is when he comes in, all the rappers that were, they used herbal substances to help their artistic flow. They were sitting like with regular schoolboys, with their hands in their laps, and they're sitting down, and Shatner gets up and goes, boys, let me tell you about Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was like Martin Luther King. And I'm like, oh my God. And the rappers are like, why is this old Jewish guy talking to us about Martin Luther King? I didn't know what was gonna happen. I was a little worried. And Shatner says, you see, Julius Caesar had the support of the people, which threatened the powers that be in Rome. And Martin Luther King, he had the power of the people, this groundswell of support, and he threatened the status quo. So like Julius Caesar, who was murdered, Martin Luther King was murdered too. And then Rated R jumps and goes, man, he jumps up and goes, that's what happens in the hood, man. Someone gets too powerful and you got to bust a cap in their ass. And then Rated R and Shatner were off to the races.
I gotta ask, so theoretically, if Free Enterprise 2 ever gets off the ground, which rappers would you want to come back for it?
Well, Rated R, who plays himself in this movie, actually murdered his manager and is serving a life sentence in San Luis Obispo prison. So if anybody likes Free Enterprise out there, you should write to Rated. I forget his real name, Rated R's. But if you search Rated R, you can find out where he's incarcerated up in Obispo, and write him. But in Shatner does not do a rap song in Free Enterprise 2. He does something else that's music related, and I don't want to give away what it is.
Of course not.
If it ever gets made, but it's a Broadway musical number.
Oh my God.
And it's pretty funny. Oh, and he also sings "Hot Chocolate's You Sexy Thing," which is a song from the 70s. But
did he like the script?
William Shatner loved the script for Free Enterprise 2. He absolutely loved it. He had one small note about the script, and his notes are always very good, but he loved it. That's what makes it such a shame we never got to make the sequel, because it's really funny, and it's a much bigger, it's a globe-trotting movie. The sequel takes place in Los Angeles, Las Vegas, New York, Russia, Israel, and Spain.
Oh, good God.
Awesome. That is awesome.
Yes. Yes, it's Dr. Strangelove meets Free Enterprise.
Oh God, please!
Yeah, and
I need tickets now.
It's pretty funny. And
I need this in my life.
Patrick Stewart would have to co-star as well. Half the movie, it's the whole premise of the movie is that Patrick Stewart and William Shatner used to be in. Shatner was in the CIA in the 70s, and Patrick Stewart was in MI6. And they teamed up together on a mission that went horribly awry. And they hate each other, which is why Patrick Stewart wanted to be the captain of the Enterprise in Next Generation. And their backstory comes into play in the movie.
Okay, so how do studios not see how that is going to make so much money?
Well, you know, we never actually sent it to the studio. We were trying to raise the money independently. I've never actively shopped the script around, but I think it's a movie that needs to get made. I mean, Shatner's 86 years old now, and I think the time is ripe to do Free Enterprise: The Wrath of Shatner.
You don't realize how much money that's going to make. Oh my god!
I think it would make a lot of money. I mean, I actually think the idea of doing it as a Netflix show, and I would intercut the episodes. I'd take the first movie and turn it into an episodic, you know, use it. That's what I wanted to do with Tom DeSanto. I still would like to do that. So
this deserved some sort of Academy Award right here.
The original Hamilton.
It's pretty funny. As many people who hate this movie say, it's a little haphazard, but how I don't even know how you could possibly have,
how do you hate this?
The amount of time.
This must have been the most fun thing to shoot ever.
It was just I didn't even know what was going to happen. It was just so weird. But it was so funny.
What was the decision to shoot it like that? Because it's like at this point shot like a music video to a point, and I enjoy that. But how did you make that decision?
Well, this was like I just wanted to get it in the can because we were working. Mm-hmm. The time was so limited and it was rough. It's funny because Chuck Barbie was shooting with Super 8 at the same time, and in the music video version of this, you see some of the Super 8 footage, and I was always wondering if I could ever recut the movie, put the Super 8 footage in there too, and make it better, just to be funnier.
Out of curiosity, you said that you had to change the script when Shatner read it. Was there anything in the script that you had to drop because you changed his?
Oh, there was a lot. There was a lot. I mean, I can't remember. Like there was really stuff like Mark's car got hit by lightning, and they were in the mirror universe for a while. Or Star Trek didn't exist. I mean, and there's all kinds of stuff like that. But it was not
too fantastical.
We found out the more that we made it seem real, the better off the movie was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but this is wacky. I just thought and it brings the whole idea of I want to see the full rap musical of Julius Caesar starring Shatner.
Right.
Because he's clearly, he's got the rappers to believe in his vision. So they're going to make a hip hop Julius Caesar. But now after Hamilton came out, it's kind of like, that's been done.
Yeah, come on, Chris.
I know.
You started a trend.
Yeah, I know, right?
I mean, it's just like Shatner always does. He's just decades ahead of his time.
Cutting edge. And this seemed like this. I love this freeze frame when we end with him. It seemed like the natural place to.
This is a great way to end it. Yeah. Was it always like this on a beach?
Yeah, it was going to be like this on the beach, but the beach was very different. It was a very much more of a California party vibe. I mean, this is such a weird
hip hop kind of thing.
Yeah, and then this the way I did like always coming and ending the movie with this credit sequence where the Mark and Rob are now making the movie that you just saw.
Yep. There you were, right there.
You'll see me. Yeah, you'll see me. I'll show you. Eric McCormick walks past me. Yeah, this is my big, and this was fun. It was about to pour down rain, so we had to shoot this. We did like 3 takes of this, I think.
Damn El Nino.
Yeah, so it's great because they're wearing Rafer's wearing a Free Enterprise movie crew T-shirt, so it's hilarious. And there's Free Enterprise baseball hats. Oh yeah, so this was my first AD actually, and he's gonna walk up to me, and I'm the one looking in the monitor. You can see me with Chuck Barbie. There I am in the background, right behind.
Yep.
Now I'm walked. Yeah, there I am. You can see my face looking into the monitor, watching the Steadicam shot. And there's Laura Hoffman out without her green makeup on. There was a much longer scene with the actor playing Mark's PA at the beginning of the movie that we cut out.
Yeah, at the beginning scene.
Yeah, which was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But again, it just took forever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of neat having all the main characters come back and they're making the movie that you saw. I mean, McCormick is so good. And there you can see me again with Chef Barbie. And again, it's one long steady cam shot, so it's funny.
Was this where Shatner was supposed to be in his trailer, or was this like?
Yeah, no, this was always scripted, and they're doing this Vulcan salute thing. And I love putting his dialogue here, spread wider. It's just such a cheap joke, but it's funny.
And we never find out who the moaning girl is. It's great.
Never find out, but she is at the end of the credits. You do hear moaning girl again.
It's a great little thing to leave people off on.
Yeah. And then the idea of putting fake credits in the movie came from Airplane, the original Zucker Brothers Airplane from 1980. I always liked fake credits. He's so funny, this kid.
His deleted scene is hilarious.
I just thought that was funny. Again, it's the Vulcan salute, but you'd have to know what it is. Now, this song, this is really interesting. Scott Spock wrote this song, and it's not on the soundtrack album because it was done very late in the game. And a woman named Lauren Christie that he ended up writing many hits with sang this song. And it's called Satellite. Now, if anybody wants the file of the song, I can send you the file. I've sent it out many, many times over the years because people have called me up and they've like, do you have that love song from Free Enterprise? I'm like, yes, and I will send you the MP3 file.
Oh my God.
So
I actually might want that.
It's really good. And unfortunately, it's not on the soundtrack. See, Deborah Van Valkenburg's name, it's Burgh, not Berg. Holly Gagné, that's who played Laura Hofferman, which was great. And then here's all of Raided's posse, which these were all the people that met Shatner when they recorded the album or the song.
John,
which is great. That was another thing. See, we never knew who Moaning Girl was, but I will tell you who the real Moaning Girl was. Scott Spock's girlfriend, our composer, and he really was having sex with her and recording her moaning. And so the moaning on the soundtrack, I'm sure she exaggerated a bit, but that was actual compilation that we used on the soundtrack of the movie. That was his girlfriend actually moaning during the sex act. Yeah.
Why is good?
Throw the dog a bone catering.
Yeah, I know, right? That sounds like we made it up, but we didn't.
Nope.
We didn't make it up. And Pug Henry is from the miniseries The Winds of War that I'm a huge fan. The Forgotten Gene L. Kuhn. Seen Things You People Wouldn't Believe, Roy Batty from Blade Runner. And then all the songs. I mean, what I love about this is how many pieces of music. When I cut this movie, it was all 80s music, and the soundtrack was going to cost $1.5 million to license all the songs.
Whoa.
That's like your budget. That's your entire budget.
Yeah, the entire budget. They told me I had $50,000, and then when we got a record deal with Network America, they gave me $50,000 more. And they required on the soundtrack I had like Duran Duran and Frankie Goes to Hollywood and The Cult, because that way they could justify the expense. So it was crazy, and I used a lot of their artists that were on that label. So it was great.
So good.
And it used to say at the end, no thanks to the United Talent Agency, because I wanted Elizabeth Berkley to be in the film to play the redhead girl after Showgirls. And I dropped it off to her agents 3 different times personally, and they kept saying they lost it. So I just said, fuck you guys. I'm not going back there a 4th time. If you can't find my script, I'm not going to hire your client. But I did want Elizabeth Berkley to be in the movie because I love Paul Verhoeven and I love Showgirls.
That's all the stuff you had to
I genuinely of course, as a cult classic and as a guilty pleasure, I enjoy the shit out of Showgirls.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. By the way, there's a final joke in here that it's actually a joke from Doc Savage, Man of Bronze, that later became a joke in Buckaroo Banzai. Buckaroo Banzai will return in Buckaroo Banzai versus the World Crime League. Well, the final joke here in the movie is the end of Free Enterprise, which is like a James Bond movie, but James Bond will return in Octopussy or whatever. So you got Moaning Girl. And then this is our Bond reference and our Buckaroo Banzai reference. And there is a reference to William Shatner versus the World Crime League in the Free Enterprise 2 script.
Oh, nice.
Where did the name Free Enterprise come from?
Well, again, that was once we couldn't use the name Trekkers. It was Mark who came up with that idea, and it just stuck.
Yeah.
We're like, I don't even know. I mean, Free Enterprise just it became. I tried to justify it to myself by making it that any dream, you know, Free Enterprise is not just business. It's not just about capitalism, but it's about anybody. Free enterprise is any dream that you set for yourself. You have to become your own entrepreneur and make your own magic, your own dreams happen. So we sort of were coming up with a weird notion of what free enterprise could be, rather than the free market system. Shatner's idea to have a musical version of Julius Caesar is also, that was sort of his idea of what free enterprise would be. So free enterprise is anything that sets you set your mind and your ability and your talents and your dreams free.
It's
at
great
least
it's great
in
that
the
you could
context of the movie.
It's great that you could use that name without any legal trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it was great, and it was funny because I got a phone call. This is funny in light of the Axanar case. I got a phone call from a producer a couple years after Free Enterprise came out, and I had a meeting. It was with Mark Gordon's company, and this producer loved the movie, and he told me that before he was a producer, he was a lawyer at Paramount, and Paramount wanted to sue us, but he liked the movie. He watched the movie 3 times looking for ways to sue us, and said he liked the movie so much he recommended that Paramount didn't sue us.
Oh, wow.
So it's too bad that I didn't have that lawyer at Paramount in 2016 when they decided to sue us
Right?
for Axanar. But you know, so it's funny. That's why I had run up against Paramount before, and it never occurred to me that they really would sue us or sue the Axanar project, because nobody loves Star Trek more than I do, and that's true to this day. I mean, Star Trek is my religion. I've loved it since I was a little kid. It's been the one constant in my life, and I am actually looking forward to, as I grew older, you know, as I loved Star Trek as a little kid. Then there was the animated series, then Star Trek the Motion Picture, then the classic movie series, and the Next Generation, then Deep Space Nine and Voyager and Enterprise, and now there's Star Trek Discovery. So throughout my entire life, there's been new Star Trek. So how can I not love it?
Amen.
Well, Robert, thank you so much for this. That was fantastic. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. It was such great insight into just how the movie making process works in
thanks for
film.
inviting me. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I hadn't watched the movie in a long time. So hopefully I'll be able to bring a Blu-ray to you all sooner rather than later.
Definitely, and that will be a lot of fun, and watch it again. I can actually watch it on my TV, which will be good. So, Robert, where can the good people find you online other than the Schmodown?
You can find me obviously on Collider Heroes, on the Collider Heroes YouTube channel, or you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or on Instagram at RMBurnett, or find me on Facebook at Robert Meyer Burnett. But send me a message so I know you're not some Russian hotbot trying to get into my business. So,
Chris Clark, where can the good people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at ChrisClark8788. Those numbers mean nothing. Or on YouTube at No Man's Land Entertainment.
Evan DeGraff, where can the people find you online?
You guys can find me here on Take 3 Productions, making the coolest, smoothest transitions you will ever find. And you can also find me becoming on Facebook, confirming that I am not a Russian sex bot, and on Twitter at Evan DeGraff15. Thank you very much.
Chris Doman, where can the people find you?
Before I quick plug myself, guys, give Chris Clark all the applause in the world, because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have had the connection to do this with Robert Meyer Burnett. So, Clark, thank you so fucking much, man.
Thanks for coming, Robert.
And obviously
thank you, and thanks for all the support with the Schmodown and my character. I very much appreciate that. And I promise you, Blofeld's cat will not let anyone down.
We hope.
Good. Glad to hear it. And you guys can find me on Twitter at my band Last Shot Redemption at LSAR Band MN. You guys can follow Take 3 Productions on Twitter at Take 3 Trivia. And of course, you can find me hosting our Schmodown reactions and the Worldwide Movie Trivia League.
And Matt, last but not least, where can they find you online?
This was a ton of fun. I love this movie, Robert. This is going to be a movie
thank you.
Going to a lot of people. I just want to let you know. You guys can find me at Kearns_Matthew on Twitter, MattMovies611 on YouTube, and as always, hosting the Movie Fandom Show right here on Take 3 every other Wednesday.
All right, and you guys can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Jacob London, and hosting the Middle Earth Saga Marathon coming up in 3 weeks. We are 3 weeks away. I'm so excited. More details about that are to come, but again, in the link below, make sure you hit attending, and do, please, if you can, donate towards it. We have such a great cause for this, and I'm so excited for this in September 1st. We are, confirmed. Rachel Cushing is joining us for Fellowship of the Ring. We're hoping we can get Robert to join us for just a little bit as well, and we've got a few other awesome guests joining us. But everyone, for everyone on this panel today, I'm Jacob London, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.